to the PhD Journey Unplugged podcast. My name's Dr. Sarah Gordon, and this is a platform where we explore the intersection between health and human performance. Also, a space to share real stories with real conversations and meaningful connections. And as you can tell today, I am joined with a guest, Alison Freeman. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sarah, for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And I just want, before we get started, Allison is a triathlete and a triathlon coach, and I'm going to share some background information about her. But I've gotten some questions recently about kind of, what is the connection between my PhD and having on so many tremendous athletes and coaches on the show. So first, I just want to share that my PhD is in health and human performance. So I already have a passion for understanding exercise science, physiology, human performance, and how important physical activity is in our lives. So that was just kind of the passion behind going for the PhD to start with. And I also wanted to share before we get started, just to kind of answer that question a bit, is that my dissertation research was studying exercise motivations with triathletes. So again, I have an interest in those areas. I also found on my PhD journey, it felt very similar to a triathlon, like training for a half Ironman, which I had done during my PhD journey, and just going after these goals and climbing these big mountains and putting ourselves out there in spaces that don't necessarily feel very comfortable. The PhD journey felt that way to me. The lessons learned, and they felt very similar to the athletic journey in terms of triathlon. So if you've been listening to the show and you've been asking yourself, I mean, why, what is the bridge here? Why are we talking about these things? That's why, because for me, they parallel each other. I like to call the guests on my show resilience warriors because I think that a lot of the stories, and as we talk to Allison today, they're stories, whether you find them in academics, athletics, personal lives, people overcome so many things in their lives. They're these stories of resilience where we can learn to um, to embrace the hard, to
Mhm.
embrace the hard. So with that, just wanted to start and explain that a bit. Allison, where are you today in the world?
I'm in a town, I'm in Louisville, Colorado. It's right outside of Boulder.
Oh, I bet you it's beautiful there.
It is lovely. It's one of our nice days, although we tend to get, I've been told we get 300 sunny days a year, so it is generally nice here.
Yeah, and I love as soon as we got started today, I love your background. It's so beautiful, it's bright and cheerful. And so thank you for joining us. Just to let our listeners know a bit about you, you're a USA Triathlon Certified Coach Level 3.
Level three in about a month. I'm just
Okay.
finishing up my course now. Yeah.
Okay. And so, what is involved in that? Because I see it all the time, level 1, level 2, level
Yeah.
3. What is involved with that?
So it's a combination of experience, kind of time coaching, and I guess I should back up. There's three certification levels for USA Triathlon coaching. So, and I actually think they added an associate level. So maybe now there's four. So you can come in and kind of get your toes wet, get your feet wet with an associate level certification.
Okay.
Level one is kind of the um, standard kind of basic level of certification for coaches. So we have something like 1,300 certified coaches, and many of them are level one certified coaches. And then after a number of years, you can apply to be a level two, you can apply to the level two certification course. So I did my level two certification back in 2019. And then just about a year ago, started a 12-month long certification course to be a level three coach. There's currently, I think,
Wow.
only 50 level three coaches in the US. So
Wow.
I'm
Congratulations on
really,
that.
thank you. Yeah, I'm
A
feeling
year
very
long.
honored.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. I mean, it's very valuable. Learning a lot, but also connecting with other great coaches and stuff. But yeah, it's really exciting to be at that phase of the process.
Yeah, and that's quite an honor to be one of 50. And you've put in a lot of, well, we'll learn about this, but you've obviously put in a lot of years and a lot of
Yes.
hard work.
Yes.
So that's wonderful. I wanted to mention that, based on some of your notes to me, that you specialize in working with middle of the pack long course triathletes and
Yes.
beginners.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Across all distances.
Yes.
And I think this is a good time just to mention, we're going to talk about it during the podcast, but I wanted to title this podcast episode in honor of something that you've worked really hard on,
Yes.
and it's coming out in the fall, and it is called, I have it printed because it's not actually published print, but it's
Right.
called Unlocking Triathlon.
Yep.
It's a book, and I will tell you, because I know from my PhD journey, it's being published in Human Kinetics.
Yes.
And that's a really top tier publisher. They publish a lot of the textbooks for school. Two of
Mm-hmm.
my hardest textbooks were published by Human Kinetics in my PhD program. So I know it's going to be a very substantial book. So I'm excited for you for that.
Thank
And
you.
you're welcome. It's called Unlocking Triathlon. And from what I can tell, it's a book for the beginner and
Yeah.
go ahead, share with us.
Beginner triathletes or
Allison, this is such an unplugged. Look behind
is
you.
my dog right there?
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
No,
I
I know.
love it. Everybody, that's why this is unplugged because I love that. That's amazing. What's your
She
dog's name?
That's Goose.
Hi,
She's a
Goose.
sheepdog poodle mix. And I back up to open space area called Coyote Run, and she is quite possibly looking for coyotes,
She's
making
amazing.
sure we're safe.
I love podcasting. Okay. Okay. So tell us about the book.
Okay, so the book is it's Unlocking Triathlon. It's going to come out, I think it should be, assuming we stay on schedule, September of 2026. And
Okay.
it's a book for beginner triathletes, but I think of it as athletes who are new to the sport or athletes who still feel like they have something to learn. So it
Okay.
doesn't have to be for your first triathlon. There's plenty in there that'll help you improve from your first or your second or your fifth to your 10th triathlon.
I mean, don't we always have something to learn?
Always,
So
absolutely
it's
always. Yeah.
probably, it doesn't really even matter what level you're at. I'm sure
Yeah.
there's lessons in there based on your experiences that we can all learn from. So
Yeah, absolutely.
if you want to sign up to get on a list for it, how would people do that?
Yeah, so you can opt in to get updates on the book in terms of pre-release and launch and other things that are going on surrounding the book at unlockingtriathlon.com.
Okay.
And I'm going to have a PDF for any of you who sign up. There's going to be a PDF with my favorite gear recommendations that I can send you. And then just, kind of other stuff will happen. Probably, I'm hoping to use the book as a platform to launch a beginner triathlon community.
Oh,
So I can keep you updated on that as I get that in the works, probably in the fall and early winter.
that's cool. What would that be? The beginner triathlon community?
Basically, a forum, like a space where you can just kind of have, well, it's funny, I just wrote an article about this for Triathlete Magazine. So when you're new to something or when you're going through something hard, I even think of like when I had my first kid and like figuring out how to be a mom was hard.
Right.
And it was much more, it was comforting, I guess, to be around other people who were doing that same hard thing and had the same struggles and challenges and questions that I was having. So triathlon's kind of a complicated sport. And so to be in a community where there's other people who are having the same challenges and asking the same questions is really comforting. And then you pair that with, I would offer probably like monthly webinars and stuff like that, where you can
I love
come and
that.
ask all your questions. And then we'll have training plans that people are moving through together. I'm still kind of formulating exactly how I want to structure it, but those are some of my initial thoughts.
Do you have to be in Colorado or can you
No,
join
I'm going to
virtually?
it'll be a virtual platform so that
Okay.
anyone can be a part of it.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Um, Keep us posted on that. And as you have more
Well,
information, I'm happy to continue to share it here on this
well,
platform.
thank you. Yeah,
So, and you mentioned writing an article for Triathlete Magazine. I have a note here that you've written over 50 articles for a Triathlon magazine.
I have. Yeah.
And I know I've written four. So I know that's a big accomplishment because, getting through editing and everything.
Yeah.
So that's really incredible that you have that background.
It's been fun. I think I started writing for them in 2018 or 2019,
Awesome.
and it's been kind of fun to cover a wide range of different topics
Hmm.
through them, and it definitely launched my writing career, and it's what made the book possible. So that's been a journey in and of itself.
Well, it's interesting you should say that because I wrote my first article for Triathlete Magazine at the end of my PhD program. So I came out of 5 year. I started a PhD program. The first class was writing philosophically. Then we went to the second class, and the teacher's like, no, 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 no. You need to learn to write scientifically. You're writing like a blog post. So then we learned to write scientifically, right, for
Mhm.
4 years. And anybody, my friends, if you're listening and you went through the program, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It was crazy, write this way, write that way. So then I came out, I wrote a magazine article. I got destroyed. I mean,
It's different.
in a nice way, but it was
Yeah.
so different. It was so different. And I said, oh my gosh, it's very different. But it was a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
so I'm glad that you and I share that connection. It is a lot of fun.
Well,
Okay, so let's do this. So, anything else you want to share about your background? I know that your daughter is working on her PhD.
yes.
So you've
And I'm
seen that
also,
struggle too, and I talked about the
yeah.
parallels.
She's in her first year of her PhD program in immunology and cell biology. So
Wow.
it's been interesting to kind of see her journey just through those first couple of terms and, kind of see her find her feet and find her footing and also to be kind of pacing herself for hers is a 5, maybe 6 year program. And
Hmm.
so to see her kind of thinking through how to avoid burnout and et cetera for success within that structure has really it's been interesting. And I just, I'm kind of along for the ride with that one. She does things that I don't even vaguely understand, but I love watching it.
Well, and not to like plug my own platform, but I would say episodes 1 through like 10 or so.
Okay.
My friend Marilyn, who I was in the program with, she had joined me at that period of time. We talked a lot about that, the mental toll, the
Yeah.
physical toll, the burnout. A lot
Yeah.
of it is learning very early on, like training. And this is why I love the parallels. Setting boundaries, right? Setting, like if you're
Yeah.
working on a specific goal, sometimes you have to learn to say no to certain things,
Mhm.
right? If you're going to go to the gym or the pool
Mhm.
or the track or on a bike ride, you can't do everything. If you have
Right.
a goal, it's the same thing with a PhD journey. You have to sometimes say no to stay focused on that goal.
Yeah.
Good sleep, good nutrition,
Hmm.
remembering the people who are like your parents, your family, like who are going on this journey with you,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's
Yeah.
an Ironman journey or a PhD journey. So there's a lot of similarities in that. But yeah, so if she ever has any questions, she can reach out to me too.
That is good to know. I will
Okay.
definitely let her know.
Sure. So she had to go through some of the things I went through.
Yes, absolutely.
That gave me the idea for this podcast to begin with. Take care of yourself. Don't lose your health like I did. Okay, so let's go to how did you find your way to triathlon?
Yeah. So we're going to rewind back to 2010.
Okay,
And I was in my early 30s. Um, and actually, no, late 30s. Yep, late 30s. Well, anyway, somewhere in there.
okay,
But I I was basically, I kind of describe it as coming out of baby boot camp. So I had 3 kids in 3 years, which is, a whole nother
a lot.
story. But yeah, a lot for sure. And so I spent several years just kind of trying to keep my head above water. And I had
Okay.
finally gotten through the hardest couple of years and had kids in preschool and had a moment to myself. And I was like, okay, I've spent years watching my kids reach all these milestones and make all this progress and do great things. And obviously, it's incredible to watch that happen. But during that time, everything I did, I felt like I was doomed to repeat it within 24 to 72 hours. So, it's like the
Oh,
dishes and the food and the
right.
laundry and the picking up the
Oh, that
toys.
just gave me goosies.
So you get it. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just like, I was treading water, and these kids were, growing and developing and doing great things. And I was just in one place. And so when I finally had, I think it was like 3 hours a week to myself, I was like, okay, I need something for me, about me, just like something that's my own.
Okay.
And I'd run a couple marathons in my 20s. So I was like, don't want to do that again. Um, and I had grown up swimming and I'd taken some spin classes. So I figured that was the perfect recipe to launch into triathlon.
That's so cool.
And that was how I started. I don't really half-ass anything. So I launched in fully with both feet and I planned out my entire first season. And I think I did 5 races that summer because again, I don't really half-ass anything. And and what I found in that first season was that I got what I was looking for, right? I had milestones that I was reaching and progress that I was making towards a goal. And I got all of that for me. But what I didn't anticipate was how much I would fall in love with everything about the sport. And it's such a puzzle that you try and put together, but there's also an incredible structure to it. And I was working from home and kind of working from home slash stay at home mom. And so the training created a structure for my days and my weeks and an ebb and a flow for the months and the years. You've got train and recover, and then peak and taper and race, and in season and off season. And suddenly my whole world had a structure that it had been missing before.
That's incredible. I actually haven't heard it. You're right. I just haven't heard it described that way. You're right. It
Well,
gave,
and I love structure and I love
yeah,
plans.
that's
And so it
interesting.
just like I just gravitated to all of it, and it became my true north. And
I was
you
just
know,
laughing because Moose was in the back of your
oh,
head.
yeah, just wandering around.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah. But it did. It was exactly what I needed at exactly the right time. And it's taken over my whole life in a lot of ways because I became a coach after I started in the sport as an individual, as an athlete.
Right.
And so it kind of launched me in a direction that I never expected.
That's so cool. I love that. I use the word journey a lot, PhD journey.
Yeah.
These are journeys. There's I can't think of it at the top of my head, but there is it Joseph Campbell?
Oh, I
The
wouldn't
hero's
know.
journey, the hero's
I don't know that
journey.
one,
We
but I
all go
would
on
be.
these
Yeah.
like journeys and you just don't know where they're going to take you. So
Yeah, exactly.
this took you to coaching. So I want to say that
Yes.
Allison, and she's a co-founder of a coaching business called NYX Endurance with
Mhm.
Julie Dunkel.
Yep.
Okay, so and if you want to find out more about NYX Endurance, it's NYX, then the word endurance.com. And there
Hmm.
you can find information about both of the Julie and Ellison and the whole platform. But you found your way to coaching.
Yes.
At what point did NYX become what it is?
Yeah. So
Where
I
did that
started,
and then I'd like to talk about it a bit.
sure.
Go ahead.
So I started coaching in 2015. I'd been
Okay.
kind of casually coaching before that, but I got my level one certification in 2015. And then we founded NYX in 2020. So
Okay.
NYX was our pandemic baby. It was kind of felt in some ways it seemed like an odd time to launch a new company, a new business, but for us it was just the right time to do it. We were staff coaches at another coaching group, and we just were looking to be able to express our voice a little bit stronger. And especially in the context of the pandemic when we triathletes were losing our minds without races. And so we wanted to be able to support our athletes in a certain way and to kind of fill that void in specific ways. And it's just really, there comes a time when you want to like lead with your own voice, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted
Definitely.
to do that. So that was where the company came from. And yeah, and so it was fun. It was a real journey for sure to launch that and to create our own platform.
That's amazing. I love how you shared like how you found triathlon, were a triathlete, and then,
Yeah.
evolved into creating this with Julie. So the first time I heard it, so when we started to correspond,
Yeah.
I was like, what does Nix mean? I had no idea like why Nix.
Yeah.
So then I found it on your website and you guys talk about it. And then I did a little bit of research myself. and here's what I found. And then I want you to tell me if I'm on the
Okay.
right track or, shape this, in terms of what it means to you and Julie.
Yeah.
So what I learned is that in ancient Greek mythology,
Mhm.
and maybe this is even from your website, but before anything existed, there was darkness, not as something to fear, but as something foundational. Because before there is creation, before there is growth, there is uncertainty. Is that, did I get that off your website? Or did
You
I
might have
find
gotten that off our website. That
I
sounds
think
like,
I might
yeah.
have, but I learned it I learned it from reading it up there. And in a lot of ways, this is what mirrors the human experience. So darkness doesn't necessarily need to mean, if I understand this correctly, and I want you to help me, something dark, like negative, it can
Correct.
mean hard. Like, could we
Yes.
replace the words?
Yeah.
Are they interchangeable?
Yeah. So in Greek mythology, Nyx was the goddess of the night.
Oh, okay.
And the only god or goddess I believe that Zeus was afraid of. So gotta
Hmm.
respect that.
And just to
Uh,
remind people, Zeus was
the king of all gods.
okay. It's
Yeah.
been a
So
while.
yeah. So Nyx was the goddess of the night, and for us, the idea of the darkness is it's not a negative, it's not an evil. It's more, the way I kind of describe it is most people, and
Hmm.
there are, I'm sure, exceptions, but I think for most people, when they sign up for a triathlon or for any endurance event, and I'm going to even categorize getting a PhD as an endurance event.
It was. Yes.
But you don't think the whole thing's going to be rainbows and unicorns,
No.
right? And especially with triathlon or an ultra running event or something like that, you kind of know when you sign up that it's going to get hard, that
Right.
you're going to, at some point during that event, wander into the darkness. And I think that I have a belief, and it's again, they're not necessarily universally true, but I think largely true for triathletes and endurance athletes is that there's something about that darkness that appeals to us. We kind of are seeking that out when we sign up for a triathlon or an ultra run or, pick your poison. And that is what I think really resonated for us with this idea of Nyx and the darkness is that, yeah, like that's like we're seeking that out. We want to go there and find out what happens.
That's interesting. It's like it, it's like any challenge. Like even like
Yeah,
climbing
absolutely.
climbing Mount Everest.
Yes, any
Anything,
challenge.
anytime and it's kind of
Yes,
the hero's journey too, which I had mentioned, which is such a great story. It's when you take yourself outside your comfort zone.
yes.
You don't know where that journey's going to take you,
Right, exactly.
right? And it might not even be so much crossing the finish line. It might be all the little nuances along the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Is that what Nix means? You don't
Yeah,
necessarily know, and you're going to have to push yourself in spaces that are really uncomfortable physically,
for sure.
physiologically.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I think Nyx is really, it's about kind of, like I said, like choosing to go to those places, but also I always say that, when you do a triathlon or an endurance event, and again, that can, be broad into mean so many things, you really find out who you are and what you're made of. And I think that that's what we were talking about and thinking about when kind of settled on this idea of Nyx being who we are is that
Right.
we want to go to these dark places and find out what we're made of, find out how we respond. What do we do when we're there?
Cool.
How do we get out of it
That's
and
cool.
get to the other side?
Okay, so then I come to you. I don't know anything about it.
Yes.
How do you help me get through that and not quit or say this is too
Yeah.
big, this is too scary? How do you help people find their courage?
So it's an interesting question, and it happens in so many little doses during training. So I feel like, I don't really have a specific conversation with people about how they do it on the race course. I think we more build it, like I said, through these little conversations in training. So some of it is, um, we do always have training days that go pretty poorly. Just when you're doing enough training and you're
Life.
accumulating enough fatigue, you're going to have a pretty crappy run somewhere. It's just inevitable. And that's a kind of a lower pressure opportunity, lower risk opportunity than race day to kind of figure out what do you do when you're in a place where things aren't going your way. And so I do talk with my athletes a lot about, a lot of times they'll come to me and be like, oh, I have this awful run and it was such a fail and this and that. And I'm like, so look, I'm like, I don't want you to have those kinds of runs, but also I don't actually mind when you do because it presents this great opportunity for you to kind of have that experience to figure out how do you respond in that moment. And then it gives us a platform to have a conversation about mental skills and kind of all the things you can put in your mental toolbox that can help you through those moments.
Do, do you ever think of yourself as a life coach as well? Because the
100%.
things that that you just said are
Absolutely.
skills for life.
They are. And I think I mentioned to you that a lot of the stuff that I talk to my athletes about, I end up using when I'm talking to my kids and helping them navigate life. So they're, one's obviously getting a PhD. I have one in college. I've got one in post-college and likely applying to med school. So they're all going through different journeys. And there's so many times that I talk to them, I'm like, oh, I can absolutely pull this little triathlon coach conversation out and slide that right into my parenting conversation.
Yeah, it's really and again, that's where I bridge the two worlds because
Yeah.
because you learn so much in the can you say in the NYX? How do you use it? How would I use
I don't,
it? No.
that's any term. No, I haven't used it that way, but you learn a lot when you're faced with a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
So, let me look at my questions. So I guess we talked about like how you help people work through, well, I guess maybe not like fear. Like, do you see, because I think a lot of times when we push ourselves outside our comfort zone, like I've talked about on past episodes, like I'm doing something in the end of June that's totally different for me. I'm traveling internationally. I've never gone by myself internationally. There's a lot of unknowns to it. Feels very
Yeah.
big, very scary, very,
Yeah.
very Nixie. There's another way to use
Sure.
it. And how do you push through? And I don't necessarily have a coach saying, come on,
Yeah.
you can do it. How do we help people if you're listening to this episode today and you're not necessarily a triathlete, you're just dealing with something in your life that feels too big, too
Yeah.
scary, and just a little overwhelming. How do we
Yeah.
help people get through those things?
So I think a lot of it is, and again, this is kind of what I do with my athletes in triathlon, but you're right that it applies to so many different contexts, is looking at, okay, well, I'm going to do this big, scary thing. What do I need to have in place to make that a successful endeavor? So
Okay.
when we look at triathlon, it's okay, I need the run training, the swim training, the bike training. I need open water swim experience. I need to know how to fuel myself. I need to know how to do transitions. There's probably a couple of things I'm forgetting, but those are a lot of them. And then it's like, okay, so I can sit there and then tell my athletes and I can help them create confidence in themselves
Mhm.
by saying, look, like here's what it takes to do this big scary thing that you've tasked yourself with.
Mhm.
And, I know as an expert that these are the boxes that you need to check. And I've been watching you for these months and you've checked all the boxes.
Oh, what a great thing to say to somebody.
But it is, then you kind of go into this thing, you're like, well, I don't know how it all adds up, but I know that I've done all the work that I was supposed to do to get here.
Yes,
And so it's always a leap of faith, right? Anytime you're doing your first triathlon, your first international trip,
right.
or your first longer distance event, whatever, it's a leap of faith because you
It
don't
is.
totally know how it all adds up. But you have to, we always say trust the training, right? But
Trust the training.
it really is just like trust the work that you've done to prepare yourself for whatever your task is, whatever that event or experience is going to be. And if you've done the work to set yourself up for success, you have to have the faith that that's going to play out and get you where you want to be.
I mean, that's excellent wisdom right there. Because in the preparation, And like you said, in those moments, those NYX moments when somebody said, I had a bad run.
Yeah,
This is great. This is great material because we
right.
learn what to do in that.
Right,
So that's the
exactly.
preparation. That's great. That helped me. Thank you.
Oh, good.
I have to give a presentation, so I'm going to practice a lot. And
Oh, yeah,
maybe somebody could throw like water balloons at me or something, like really shake me off my game,
absolutely.
right? Like it's the same thing with open water swim. Like we
Well, I
swim
was
in the
just
pool,
thinking,
right?
I
We
had a,
swim in the pool. It's a nice controlled environment. There's
yeah.
no turbulence. It's
So I had an
not
athlete, yeah,
necessarily open water.
right. So I had an athlete who was doing her first, it was going to be her first triathlon. It was her first Ironman. I
Okay.
mean, she was doing an Ironman as her first triathlon, which, we can have and she in hindsight knows that that was, a big, it was a big leap from
Oh,
not,
her
she wasn't a
first,
couch. Her
wait, her
first
first.
triathlon was an Ironman. She was an athlete, but she hadn't
Okay.
been a triathlete
Well,
until
that is a big leap.
it's a big leap. And she knows that now. But and it was also an early season, it might have been a May Ironman. And so there wasn't here in Colorado, she was a local athlete for me. And so there wasn't a way to get her in open water beforehand. So I sent her to the pool with one of my other athletes. I think they both were at the same gym. So the more experienced athlete had done triathlon before, and I could tell, I was like, hey, you need to go and swim with my new athlete and you need to simulate open water. So she swam next to her and she was like putting her hand on her back and grabbing her feet. And I think there might have been kickboards thrown at her, but we were
Wow.
simulating the whole experience. I mean, they also, I think, were laughing hysterically the entire time because it was highly entertaining. But yeah, it is. I don't know. That was a random story, but it
No,
just
no,
what you were
it's
saying
a
reminded me of it.
no, it's a perfect example because when you go into these spaces, right? These dark spaces, these unknowns, we sometimes we have to draw on experiences
Yes.
mentally. We can use like the pool. You can use some imagery. You can
Hmm.
use some type of visualization to help you
Yeah,
through these things. And so
absolutely.
those are great examples of how to do that. It's funny because I did my first marathon when like I was in my 20s,
Hmm.
Marine Corps marathon.
Nice.
And thank you. And that was a hard race, right?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
at the end, they're all like, "You're almost done. You're almost done." And I don't want to like, spoiler alert if you're going to do it. Even at the end, you're not almost done. You go up a
Yeah.
hill. Okay. Funny story. I got a tap on the shoulder about a mile or two from the end, finish line, and this gentleman goes, "Keep up the good work," and he passes me. He was in his 70s. I was like in my
Love
20s.
that.
I love it too. But the hard in that experience I've used so many times in my life
Totally. Of course
visually,
you
like,
have.
okay, Sarah, you're
Yeah.
at mile 18.
Yep.
Okay, it's
Yep.
gonna get hard. You're at mile 20. You're at
Yep.
mile 20, 23. So I think that helps in those situations, like when you have fear or think that you can't get to that next step. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. You had a note to me about to share your funny story from your first half Ironman. How people respond when things get hard.
Yeah, well,
That's
I don't know. This is going to say a lot of different things about a lot of different aspects of my personality, or maybe just
okay.
triathletes in general. So, I did my first half Ironman in my third season of triathlon. And I am a big believer that you do a couple seasons of short course, and then you do a couple seasons of 70.3s, and then you get up to Ironman because
Fair.
it's just like your body builds endurance very comfortably when you do it slowly, and there's a year-over-year effect. But anyway, so my first 70.3, which was Eagle Man in Maryland.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I live near
I
there. I know that one.
Yeah,
Live
yeah,
there.
I know. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was in Northern Virginia at the time, so it was super
Oh, so
logical,
cool.
made a ton of sense. But so about halfway into my training plan, I developed what I thought was a stress fracture. Of course, I just self-diagnosed myself, and I was like, "This is definitely a stress fracture because it feels like my foot is broken, but my foot's not broken." So, so I did the elliptical for 6 weeks, and then I tried to run again, and I still had a lot of pain. Anyway, so it was this whole kind of hilarious story about going to see this podiatrist and the, there's anyway funny. There's a reason that's a funny story, but the podiatrist told me I had a neuroma, which I don't know if you know what a neuroma is, but basically, if on your foot, in between the like essentially knuckles of your foot, there's
Okay.
nerves. And if you have a little, essentially like a cyst that grows on the end of the nerve, that's a neuroma.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
and then the nerve and the cyst get squeezed while you're running, and it's pain because it's a
Okay.
nerve. But they explained to me what it was, and I was like, oh, so you're telling me it's fake pain? Like there's nothing broken, but it just hurts. I'm like, that's totally fine. I can work with fake pain. That like nothing's gonna happen, right?
Right. It's just
So of
painful.
course, yeah, it's just pain. So of course, I try and run on it after I find out, and the next day I can barely walk because it's so painful. So the doctor, and the way you treat is with a series of cortisone type injections, and they
Okay.
work 50% of the time, but it takes a while to know if they're working. And so by the time I was going to be at race day, I would have had all three shots, but kind of not necessarily far enough in for it to have taken full effect. And I was like, okay. And the doctor, this is where the podiatrist part gets funny. So the doctor's like, yeah, so I can give you, I can give you basically a little vial of a nerve block and a syringe, and you can put the nerve block in your foot before you start running during the race.
Oh no, does it look
Yeah.
like
And I was like, that sounds
dosing?
great to me. I'm like, that's totally fine. I will
I
definitely do
see where
that.
this is going. Go ahead.
So the day before the race, they have the athlete briefing, and I go to the athlete briefing and I sit through it, and the head official was there, and I went up to her afterwards. I'm like, hey, I just like I have a question because I have this neuroma and I need to put a nerve block in my foot, but I have to inject it with a syringe. And I just want to make sure that if I pull out a syringe and throw that in my foot during T2, that you're not going to disqualify me. I'm not doping.
Right.
And she was like, I'm sorry, you're going to do what? So I gotta explain it again. And she's like, yeah, I think you're nuts, but that's fine if you want to do
I
that.
think you're nuts, but let's go for it.
So yeah, so I did. I finished the bike. I sat down. I had to keep, it was of course a brutally hot day because Eagle Main's always a brutally hot day. And I had like a lunch bag, like insulated lunch thing with ice in there to keep anyway, I pulled out the syringe, threw that thing in my foot, headed out on my run.
And when I started today, I called them resilience warriors.
I mean, it's crazy.
It's a
Let's be
new
clear.
term
Like,
that I think I've coined. I don't know if it's out there or not. You are a resilience warrior.
I think that I think we all can get very fixated on a goal and have the mindset of I will do whatever it takes to achieve the goal.
Yeah, but I think that in your mind you knew that it wasn't like a serious, you weren't running on something that was gonna get
Exactly.
worse.
Nothing was going to
It's
get
just,
worse. It was
right,
just pain.
right. And
And
that's an
yeah.
interesting, I mean, that would be an interesting conversation to have actually about pain and how do you get through, like, because everybody has different pain thresholds.
So it's interesting.
And
I mean, there are different techniques, right? So there's a whole bunch of different ways you can approach that. And really a lot of times, and I'm sure you've heard this before, but running and triathlon and endurance sports, a lot of it is about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable,
yeah, I mean, I think
right?
it goes back to NYX. Like, it's like
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
teaching people what they're made of.
Yeah,
And that's the exciting part of it all, because
yeah,
that's where you build confidence and
yeah,
courage. And
yeah,
I always say strength for the journey within.
yeah,
That's kind of what, the PhD
yeah,
journey taught me. I think that's what triathlon teaches us. Well, let me ask you this, because we understand the hard.
yeah.
How do you guys have fun?
Okay. So have you ever heard of type 2 fun?
No.
Okay. So, so this is an important thing to understand.
Yeah, because it's all hard. I get it.
Well, but okay, but this is where type 2 fun comes into play. So
Okay.
type 1 fun is just like normal fun, right?
Okay.
It's going to a concert, playing a board game, hanging out with your friends, like all the stuff that any normal person would call fun. That's type 1 fun.
Okay.
Okay. Type 2 fun is it is actually a thing. It is
Okay.
still fun, but it's more that it's like fun when it's over, or it's fun to remember it once it's over.
Oh,
So
interesting.
we think that doing the crazy hard stuff is the fun
It's
part.
fun.
So as an example, so last summer, I kind of on a whim decided to do gravel worlds in Nebraska, Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay.
And there was a group of people from NYX going, and I was like, oh, I kind of like what I was planning on doing had kind of gone sideways on me. And I was like, oh, there's a group of people that's going to be there. Yeah, it's 4 weeks away. I'm currently only up, like, I'm biking regularly, but maxing out, like, doing a couple 90-minute to 2 hour rides a week, maybe three or so. But I was kind of like, so that's 2 hours. And, it's a 75-mile gravel ride. So that's like a solid 6 hours. And it's only 4 weeks away, but I can totally do that. This to me sounded fun.
Fun.
And even like this is how, and I'm talking to my daughter because it's the summer and she's home from college. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, so I'm thinking about doing this gravel race and I'd have to drive there by myself because I don't have anyone to carpool with. And it's an 8 hour drive each way. And then and I've only really been doing this. So I'd have like maybe I had 2 weekends to train. And, and and then this, and it's going to be hilly and it's going to be hard and it's going to be really hot because Nebraska in August. And she's like, that all sounds awful. And I'm like, oh, that's really funny that that's what you thought because I'm saying all this. And I'm like, these are all great reasons to go.
Sounds fun.
It is,
Type
it's like
type
that, it's
two
that
type
t-shirt, but
two
like
fun is what you said?
type two fun. So
Okay.
it's, it's that t-shirt that's like, that's a horrible idea. What time?
Oh
That's
my
like,
gosh, I love that. I've never seen that.
that's, that's how we have fun.
It's a
Like
say
this,
that. Do you
this
mind saying that again?
Yeah. So there's a t-shirt. I mean, there's probably posters and all this stuff. It
Okay.
says, that's a horrible idea. What time?
I love, oh my gosh.
Or that sounds like a horrible idea. But basically it's just like, yeah, that's I had to explain to my daughter because I'm saying all this stuff and she's like, those are all reasons not to go. I'm like, that's so funny because what I'm hearing are all reasons that I should be doing this.
Well, let me ask you this, and I know I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask, for your age and whatnot, but do you think as we're aging, do you think the golden nugget there is it feels like play? It
So
takes us back to our childhood a bit. If
So here's my working theory on it. And I will say it's actually not my working theory. It's my friend's working theory that I
okay,
stole from her. So
okay,
I have a good friend. I've known her for decades. And she is a therapist. She actually somewhat recently became a licensed therapist, but I referred to as an amateur therapist for a long time before she became truly licensed
hmm
and started doing it professionally. And so I've known her since before I started doing triathlon. So she's
okay.
seen the whole journey. And I was talking to her one day and she was like, oh, I finally get it. I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, you've been doing this for so long and like you keep coming back to doing these things that she thinks are insane. And she's like, I never really understood the appeal. She's like, but I finally figured it out. And she tells me about how Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor, wrote a book called, I'm blanking, I think it's Man's Search for
Man's
Meaning.
search for meaning.
Yes. Okay. So she's telling me about, and she reads voraciously. So she probably had been reminded of this book somewhat recently prior
It's
to
a
this
great
conversation.
book. I highly
Yeah.
recommend it.
So
Not a
she's
long
like,
book, but it's a great book.
yeah. So she tells me, and then hopefully I've got this right, but she tells me that Viktor Frankl in the book basically says that people find meaning in one of three ways through creating, right? Artists or gardeners or stuff like that, or through giving back, or through suffering. And
Interesting.
she believes, and I fully buy into it, that we find meaning through suffering. I am finding some sort of meaning in my life by putting myself into these challenging, uncomfortable situations where I am suffering and then figuring out how to come out the other side.
It's it's I'm speechless.
I would not have
I'm
come up with that on my own.
speechless
Like I
on her
said, this was
podcast. I
so
never have
this is
trouble
yeah,
talking.
this is my friend who's very wise and very insightful.
Mhm.
But I
Yeah.
think it's very, very true. And I also think that and I will also say, so I don't know if you ever read Iron War by Matt Fitzgerald. It's one of my
No.
favorite books. It's about the iconic Iron Man race that where Mark Allen and Dave Scott were shoulder to shoulder for
I've
basically
heard
the
about
entire
it.
race,
Hmm
right? And Matt Fitzgerald's book it's a great telling of the story of that race. But in the earlier chapters, he also talks about the triathlon community and about the triathlete mindset. And he talks about kind of um, our being drawn towards the suffering. But the other thing he points out, which I think is very, very true, is that there's something about the triathlon community, and I think probably not exclusive to triathlon, but it's one thing to kind of go and do some hard thing on your own and suffer and come out the other side and find out what you're made of. And there's a lot to be learned and a lot that people learn about themselves by doing that. But so say you go and you do an event of any kind, triathlon, run, tough mudder, whatever, and it's hard.
Hmm.
And then you finish and you're at the finish line and you're getting the finish line food and you're just sitting around and everyone's talking about, oh my gosh, that hill or the wind
Talking
here
about the heart.
or the chop in the swim. And sharing that suffering is even more meaningful in some ways than just doing it
Yeah.
on your own.
It's very interesting. I mean, my research was with older triathletes and looked at
Okay.
exercise motivations. And enjoyment was a major theme, and the health benefits as we age.
Hmm.
These were 65 and older triathletes, and sense of community. But
Yeah.
I think what you're talking about, it'd be really interesting to measure it somehow, is like people who aren't scared to put themselves into that space because of what
Yeah.
you gain from it. It's really
Yes.
interesting. It's really, really interesting.
It
Yeah.
is. It is. I
And
always say it's just, go
and
ahead.
I was just saying, and I think again, even though we're framing this conversation within the world of triathlon, I think that it's applicable to just life,
Of course.
life in general, like the choices we make. I've said in the past on the show, like it's one thing to go through hard things that you don't necessarily pick, right? There's hard
Yeah.
things in life that we don't necessarily choose, and if we had to choose,
Mhm.
we wouldn't want them in our life. It's
Right.
almost like how you choose to get through it is kind of, how you can
Yeah.
embrace it. But when you choose to put yourself in some type of hard,
Yeah.
there's just so much to learn there. It's just
Yeah,
incredible. It
for
really is
sure.
incredible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's again, that's where this strength from the journey within. And so that you're just absolutely touching on that. Um, okay, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I this is such a interesting conversation
Yes. It's
and
fun. Yeah.
it is fun. Uh, but it's hard. No, I'm just kidding.
It's
No,
both.
it's both. No, but I want to give you this opportunity to share whatever you think that would be a strong message for our listeners, knowing that this is a platform to talk about like mental health, physical health,
Yeah.
believing in yourself, not being scared to put yourself out there, go after your goals and your dreams. And so, just based on your experiences,
Yeah.
what would you like to share with our listeners?
Well, I think that the real importance or the real thing to understand when you're moving towards any goal
Hmm.
is to know why you're doing it, right? And we talk about that in triathlon, but I think it's true everywhere is, you always want to know what your why is. I tell my athletes that they don't have to tell me what their why is. And your why doesn't have to make sense to anyone else, right? And it doesn't have to be something that you really want to admit out loud. Sometimes it sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, and sometimes sometimes you want to do it for your mom or for your kid or for a loved one, or in memory of someone or something like that. And those are obviously reasons that are wonderful to share, but sometimes it can be really internal. Like you want to prove. Hell, I don't care if you need to prove it to your ex-partner,
Right.
right?
I've
Because
heard that.
everyone's
I've
motivated by
actually heard
different
that.
things.
I actually
Yeah,
heard that today. Actually, I was somewhere and like
sure.
they said I did my first 5K because
Yeah,
I don't wanted to prove that there was somebody
exactly.
that didn't believe in me.
Yeah.
Just heard
But I
that
do
earlier
think you
today.
need to
Yeah.
know, I think you need to know why you're doing it. And I also think, and so that's important to always kind of be in touch with that and be aware of it. And it can change and evolve, right? If you're doing something for 10 or 20 years, why you're doing it is going to change, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But to always kind of have an understanding of what drives you, I think is important. I also think it's really important to only chase the goals that excite you.
That's
A
so,
lot of times people kind of are like, well, I've done an Olympic, and so now I'm supposed to do a 70.3, a half Ironman, or I've gotten my master's, now I'm supposed to get a PhD, or whatever it is. And I don't think that's how we should be making these decisions. I think you should only do what excites you, because if you're
I just
not
wrote that
excited
down.
by it, then you're not going to be motivated to do it. The burnout is going to happen quicker, and it's also generally, if you're not excited by it, it's not tied into that why and
Yeah.
that driving force. And so I just feel like those are kind of the two big things that I really believe in when people are going after goals.
What, just real quick, what do
Yeah.
you do with an athlete when you start to recognize
Yeah.
that it doesn't excite them, that this is
I tell them,
okay?
because I can tell, and I'm like, hey, like, or I don't necessarily tell them. That's a better way to put it, is that I try and raise the conversation and get them to think about it,
Hmm.
and give them the platform to acknowledge that actually you're right, this isn't
This isn't
what
for
excites me.
me.
Yeah, sometimes people feel like they're quitting if they don't continue with it.
Well, that and just I know we're kind of getting towards the ends of our time here, but like, how do you? Because I just think it's important
Yeah.
and if you don't mind teaching us, how do you measure that? Like to push somebody or knowing that it's not the right path. Like, how do you figure that out? Because I think that's a good skill or strategy for all of us, like just in life.
Yeah.
How do
Well,
you know?
so a lot of my athletes I talk with weekly. And so you
Okay.
can tell, like, you can hear the excitement in someone's voice, right? And it's not to say that if someone's unmotivated to do their workouts here or there, that doesn't mean they're not excited by their goal, right?
Right.
Like, lack of
It ebbs and
motivation
flows.
happens, there's ebbs and
Yeah.
flows, and that doesn't phase me. And honestly, sometimes it's very predictable. And so I can be like, yep, you're right on schedule. This is when everyone gets unmotivated. We're fine. But sometimes you can just hear, it's more that when they talk about the event and you don't hear that excitement in their voice and they're kind of like lackluster or almost avoidant. And then you do have to kind of subtly try and kind of ask questions to figure out why.
Hmm.
But it is a lot of times people hang on to goals or move towards goals because they feel like it's what's expected by others, or they expect it of themselves, even if it's not what excites them.
Hmm.
And then they kind of are on this path and they don't know that there's a way to get off the path. And I absolutely firmly believe that people should, and especially in the context of triathlon, but I do believe so people should only chase the goals that excite them. But especially when you think about it in terms of a hobby, right? Like, this is a hobby. You're supposed to do it because you're having fun.
Right.
If this is not fun for you, if what you're going towards does not sound fun for you, we need to make a change.
Right. Why are you doing it?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I have athletes that I continue working with because it's not necessarily always about the race.
That's true too. Sometimes it's just the
It's just the
the
journey. And
process
they,
of
yeah, they
training
enjoy
is
the structure and the training, but
right.
maybe not the
That's a good
races.
point.
And it's fine.
And that's a really good opportunity for me too. I hope it's okay. It's on your
Yeah.
website. But
Oh,
I printed this picture. I don't know if you can see Allison. You see it?
I can see it. Yeah.
Full side training,
Yeah.
coaching. That's what it's all about.
Yes.
That's what it's all about. Your energy inspiring other people to go after
Yeah.
their goals and to believe in themselves. And it's wonderful. Coaching is a lot like being a teacher.
Yes. I
And
agree.
I'm sure it's a very fulfilling you know, space to be in. So I
It
can
is.
tell as you
Yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah.
I just want to mention again, Allison's book is coming up in
Yeah.
September.
September. Yes.
It's called Unlocking Triathlon Training Plans and Coaching Support for a Confident Race Day. Allison did not ask me to come on here and to talk about it, promote it. She was very humble about it, but I wanted to. So I want to make sure because I know how much hard work went into a project like this. And
Yeah.
so
It's been
I'm
a journey for
excited
sure.
for you. And then if you go to that, is it where do you go if you unlock
Unlockingtriathlon.com.
triathlon.com.
Yep.
you'll see information about it. So if you're curious about getting into triathlon, you're looking for a book that's going to give you some foundational information. If you're actively in the world of triathlon and you want to pick up additional tips, I mean, she has a lot of, how fitness works from plan to practice, race day unlocked, tailored training plans. There's a lot of good information. And like I said in the beginning, the fact that it's being published on Human Kinetics says a lot about the book. They don't pick up just any book. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for coming on the show. I would love to have you on longer. I know that it's a busy day, so I appreciate you
Um,
being here.
well, this has been a really, really fun conversation, and I would love to come
You.
back and talk to you again.
I would love to have you too, and Moose.
Yes, absolutely.
That,
Special
you
appearance.
know, sometimes in these things, and this is what makes it makes it authentic and so great, is because you won't be able to see it until you see the
No.
recording. But Moose was just standing there, like right behind you,
Add attention, right?
as you
Yeah.
were real serious starting, and he just right there. I thought, this is why I love this. This is why this is real life, real stuff. And everybody, listen. I love this platform. It inspires me to have people such as Allison on the show to educate and motivate and never give up on yourself. Okay. Go after your goals, go after your dreams. It's a short journey. So, make space for yourself. We talked about that at the very beginning of this show today, how Allison did that. She made space for herself after dedicating her life to parenting, which you still are. You don't stop. That's a
Right.
whole journey, but you found space for yourself as a triathlete. And then it grew. It grew into a love of coaching. It grew into NYX Endurance. It's growing into this book. It's growing on this platform. And so it's just a great, great story for us all to learn from. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Sarah. It's been a blast.
Okay, everybody, we'll be back soon. This podcast will launch on depending on when you hear it, it's going to launch on got to get my dates straight here. Friday, April 3rd. So it'll be live by the evening on the 3rd.